When you receive a payment from an account customer, the payment needs to be applied through the Accounts Receivable module. Once a job has been saved as an invoice, payments can no longer be posted on the Payments tab in the invoicing screen. In the Accounts Receivable, there are two areas where you can enter in payments: Payments and Payments by Invoice. Payments is used when you have a single check for one or more invoices from a single account customer. Payments by invoice would be used when you have a single check paying multiple invoices for multiple account customers. This is designed specifically for payments that you're receiving from insurance networks in which they may be paying you for jobs for several different insurance companies. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Payments by Invoice section. You'll want to go under AR and go to Payments by Invoice. Now this section differs from the payment section in that you don't put in an account, because at this point there are several different accounts, so it's going to determine those accounts when we tell it what invoices we're paying. So we're going to start out here at the top by putting in the amount of the payment that we're receiving. Next we'll fill in the check number. Now if you're receiving payments electronically, they may give you a transaction number for the electronic transaction. You can fill that in as the check number instead. In the date, you'll want to pick the date that the transaction was posted. And then if you have any additional reference information you'd like to add in, you can put that in the reference number field. Over to the right, if you have the General Ledger module, you'll have the GL account drop down. Now that general ledger account was set up in your chart of accounts in the controlling accounts section, so that should be the correct general ledger account. There may be certain instances in which you'd want to change that to a different general ledger account, but those are special situations, so in most cases you're going to leave that GL account set right where it is, which normally is going to be this undeposited funds. And then lastly, you'll pick the type of payment that you're receiving. Underneath that, you have the non-deposit payment checkbox. That would only be used if the payment you're posting here is actually not a payment that will be going into your bank account for some reason, and you don't want it to show up in your check register into the daily deposit screen. So you'll check the non-deposit payment in that situation, which again is a rare occurrence. Next, you'll go down into the invoice number section and you'll put in the invoice number of the first invoice that you'll be paying. Once you type in the number and hit enter, it now brings me up a invoice selection screen. You can see that they're both 52, but there's an A and a B. The A side is the insured side, or the cash customer, which was already paid in point of sale. And then the B side is the insurance company side. So we're going to go ahead and select 52B and choose OK. It automatically applies the payment amount. And then as you can see, the balance then is shown as 0. Then we would just continue to go down to the next available line and put in the next invoice that we're paying, and keep going through until we put in all of our invoices. Once we're done putting in all of the invoices, up at the top, the left to apply should show 0 if the full amount of the check has been applied. If the left to apply isn't 0, you want to take a look at a few things and determine why it isn't. One might be that you just typed in the wrong amount for the payment amount. Another might be that perhaps you applied a payment to a wrong invoice, or maybe the amount that they paid you was a different amount and therefore you need to make corrections to that invoice. Once you have everything applied, you'll simply go up to the top and choose Save. And once the payment transaction has been saved, up in the top right corner you'll have a master reference number as well as a transaction number. If you'd like to apply another payment, you'll need to just go up to the top and choose New, and then put in the next payment that you're going to be applying. Now that we've taken a look at how a normal payment should go, let's take a look at a few other payments that might happen. So let's go back to the payment that we just did. Go ahead and pull that up. And I'm just going to go ahead and void this out so we can play around with it some more. We're going to go ahead and choose New. And now let's say that we received a short payment, which is not uncommon with insurance companies. So we'll type in our amount, we'll type in our check number, we'll put in our first invoice, and everything's good with that one. And then we put in our second invoice here. And now we see that there's a balance of $2.85 on this invoice. Now, a couple things we could do. We could go back to invoice 53 and we could do a credit rebill, and we could take $2.85 off of it, and then we could come back in here then and make the payment, and then it would come out correctly. But typically you're not going to want to do that. So if we just go here to the discount column, and then we can put in $2.85, and now our balance goes to 0. And we just need to pick a discount type reason, and we can choose from the list here. We can add to this list by going under Admin, Configuration, Payment Discount Reasons, and we could add other reasons in there such. Now that's one way of handling it. Now the other thing that you might have there is maybe they did a short pay on each of your invoices. Maybe they charged you a $1.50 network fee or something along those lines. And so what you can do there is you can change the amount of the payment. So let's say if we just made this one, we'll just make it $185. We'll remove this discount. And then, here on this payment, we could change this amount to be whatever it needed to be. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. You'll put in your total payment. Each invoice is not being paid the full amount, so you just go into the payment field, change that to the correct payment amount, and then at the end you can go through and in your discount columns put in the discount of $1.50 or whatever it happens to be on each individual invoice, so that they all have a 0 balance at the end. So once everything has a 0 balance in it, then you can go ahead and save your payment. Now the other thing that can happen is that you could get an overpayment. In that situation, we can leave the payment unapplied. If you watch the payments video, you'll saw how we had the unapplied payments. However, it's a little bit different when it comes to the pay by invoice, because we've got several different accounts usually that are being paid, so it's not all the same account, so it's a little more difficult to handle the unapplied amount. And typically you're not normally going to have extra payments, hopefully, so it's not something that you would deal with all the time. But let's take again our original payment, which was $375.64, and let's just say that instead of that it was just $380. And again, we'll put in our beginning invoice and then put in our other invoice. And now you can see in the left to apply, we have $4.36. So we'd have to choose which account we wanted that unapplied to go to. Do we want it to go to the State Farm Links account or to the auto owner's insurance account? So again, this is really uncommon, and you might want to look it over, make sure your amounts are correct, your invoices are correct, and you may just want to change one of your invoices to match, add another $4.36, and just so that there's a 0 balance. Or you could put in a debit. We talked about that in the payments video on how to add a debit. So you could review that and add in a debit. But you can, in this on account field, put in that extra amount, and now the left to apply will go to 0, and now there's $4.36 on account for the auto owner's insurance. So again, there's nothing we can do really to apply that payment in here unless we recall this payment and then add in another invoice and remove the $4.36 from the on account here and then pay it on that particular invoice. The way that you could more easily apply that on account is to go into the payment section, pull up your auto owners, and then you'll have your unapplied payments option here with the $4.36, and then we could then apply it to any open invoices for auto owners. So again, that's probably going to be a rare occurrence that you'd have an overpayment on something that you're paying on a multiple invoice, multiple customer payment type. And if you run into that situation, you may want to contact technical support and have them help you walk through that and helping you decide how you want to handle that.